In the previous tutorial, we created our users application that is supposed to be responsible for handling our users' functionalities. We also created a users model, and we saw how we can create a user in the admin page. This is enough if you'll be using the application by yourself, but if you want the public to access it, you will have to create public URLs and pages where users can sign up and log in. User authentication is an important part of many applications, and while Django provides basic authentication tools, implementing features like social logins, email verification, and password management can be a daunting task. This is where third-party apps like django-allauth come in. It offers a comprehensive, ready-to-use authentication system that supports these features, allowing us to focus on building our app. So you can see the various features that it offers. This is their documentation page. It's comprehensive, it offers social login, it's enterprise ready, it's battle tested. That just means that it has gone through various penetration testing. It's limiting, it's private, and it's also customizable. In today's tutorial, we are going to focus on regular accounts, that is authentication by username or email, registration of new users, email address management, password forgotten flow, changing of the password, and email address verification flow. So to get started with django-allauth, we'll have to install it. So we can run pip install django-allauth. So that will install django-allauth. After that, we need to register it in our applications, and you can follow this in their quick start guide. So we just need these two for now. The social accounts, we are going to do it at a later part of this series. So in our root application directory, where we have our settings file, we are going to have third-party apps. And down here, we are going to have the two applications, allauth and allauth account. And we also need to add the authentication backends. So we can just copy this. And down here, where after our installed apps, we can add our authentication backends. We need to add the account middleware, so we can copy this and add it in our middleware. And after this, we need to add the allauth URLs to our URL patterns. So I can just copy this and add it to our URLs. Then we can make the migrations. So in our URLs, we're going to add this. Let me add it here. So we have accounts, include allauth.urls. So after that, we need to make the migrations. So Python manage.py migrate. And we can see this in our admin page. Let me just first of all add the server. And we can navigate to the admin. So you can see the new application where we have our accounts, and underneath it, we have the email addresses. So when we register a user using a valid email address, they're going to appear here. For now, we don't have any, but you'll see them as the series progresses. So before we get started with this, there's one thing that I need to update, and that is our homepage. You'll see that when we navigate to our root URL, we get this. Ideally, I'd like this URL to return the homepage. So we can fix this in the URLs. So in our home application, in our URLs, first of all, I'm going to remove this hello world. This was just for testing. And in our home root, we can just leave this empty. And we can try to refresh it. And yeah. So our root URL returns the home view. We are going to start with the registration or sign up pages. But before we do that, there's a couple of django-allauth settings we need to set. So in our settings file, paste this in. And I'm getting this from the official documentation. In your own time, you can go through this. And basically what I'm doing is I'm setting the account authentication method to email. And account email required, I'm setting it to true. So the user is required to hand over an email address when signing up. And I'm also setting the account email verification to none. This can be optional or mandatory. When we set it to mandatory, an email verification email is sent to the user in their provided email address. If it's optional, the email is still sent. If it's none, the email is not sent. So I'm setting it to none because we haven't configured our email functionality. We are going to do that later using Mailgun. And I'm also setting the account username required to false, since we don't want to prompt the user to enter username. Account user model username field, I'm setting it to none. That is to disable the username field. So I'm going to navigate to the sign up page. Let me first of all bring up my server. So Python manager py run server. Right now I think we are at the home page. And to navigate to the sign up page, we can go to the view. So we can go to the sign up view by django-allauth, and that's under accounts _ sign up. So I'm going to copy this, and in our home page, go to that page. I don't think it will work for now. And you can see that it redirects to a profile URL, but we haven't created the view for this. So before we do this, let me just log out, and I'm going to do that from the admin page. So we've logged out, and we can navigate to the sign up page. So we get this very basic sign up page from django-allauth, and it's very basic for important reasons. And one of them is that it gives us the opportunity to customize it to fit our brand. And we can do this by providing our own templates. So in our template directory, we're going to need to create a new folder, and we're going to call it account. And in the account directory, we're going to provide our own templates that are going to override django-allauth templates. So we're going to start by the signup.html, and this will override the existing signup.html from django-allauth. And we can see this by refreshing this page. So you can see that we get nothing because we overrode the default signup page. So we can start by providing our own signup.html. First of all, we are going to extend base.html. Then we're going to have our block content, and this is where we are going to have our form. So you can see it in action. Let me just refresh it. So in the middle, this is where we should have our form. So django-allauth will provide the form as a variable, and I showed how to pass variables in Django using Ginger when we created the base.html file, when we passed the title variable in our title tag. So django-allauth will pass the form as a variable as such, and we can see it when we refresh our page. And now you can see that we have it here. We have our password again, and all this stuff that we can't read. It's obvious that we can't use the form as it is for now. So we're going to have to add some custom CSS. I've prepared the custom form separately. I'm going to share it with you. It has some custom bootstrap CSS and also some custom CSS. So I'm going to paste it in, and I'm going to remove this form since we have it down here. And I'm going to refresh it so that you can see it. So you can see that the form is not very smart. And luckily there is another third-party app that we can use to style our forms. And that's Django Crispy Forms. So we can just install it and see how we can style our form and install the Crispy Forms. So after installing it, we need to register it in our installed apps. That's under installed app. You can just copy this from the documentation. So in our settings file, you can have it in our third-party apps. After registering it, we also need a template pack. That's another app. And that we're going to use Crispy Bootstrap 5. So I'm going to copy that and install it. So let's install it and register it. And we are also going to copy these variables, Crispy allow template packs and Crispy template pack. So let me first register it in our settings. So we have the Crispy Bootstrap. Finally, let's have our Crispy template tags and our template pack. So we are going to have it down here next to our static files. We have our crispy allow template pack, our crispy template pack. So how do we use this to style our forms? So we need to load the crispy forms tags. So we can say load crispy tags. And after loading these tags, we can style the form by passing this filter, crispy. So this is going to style our form using the crispy tags. Let me just run my server and try this. So let's refresh it. And yeah, you can see that our form looks much better right now. So we have the email address, the password, and the confirm password. As it is, it won't work right now because we need to customize it further and add a couple of fields, because remember that we need the first name, last name, and also the age. So we can add a sample email address. Let's say john@gmail.com. Password, I'm going to pass in a password, testing321, testing321, and click on sign up. You can see that we get this error which we saw earlier, that not null, consent failed. This simply means that we need to provide an age field to our form. So to fix this, we're going to override the default sign up form to add the first name, last name, and age field so that our users can be created correctly. So in our users application, we're going to create a custom sign up form, and we're going to do this in a forms.py file. So create a new file, that's forms.py, and over here we're going to create the custom form. So we are going to start by importing the form from django-allauth, and we are going to extend it in our custom form. So that's from allauth.account.forms import, and we're going to import the sign up form. So I'm going to create a class. This will be called custom sign up form, and we're going to extend sign up form from django-allauth. There's also one thing we need to import from Django. So from Django, we need to import forms. So here we're going to start by defining our fields, and that is the first name, and this will be a character field. So forms dot character field, max length, this should be 250, and we're also going to give it a label. This will be first name, and we can do the same thing for the last name. So we have last name, the label should be last name, and lastly we are going to have the age, and this is an integer field. So forms dot integer field, and here we are going to give it a label of age. And lastly, I'm going to override the save function, and I'm getting this from the documentation. So for reference, you can refer to the documentation. So I'm just going to copy this. We are simply overriding the save method from django-allauth sign up form. So this should be custom sign up form. Take the request. I don't think we need to do any processing over here. We just need to return our user object. So we have our sign up form, and after that, like as you can see in the documentation, we just need to specify this key, which is the account forms, in our settings file. So in our settings file, where we have our account settings, underneath it, let's just have the account forms, where we have the sign up. Here we are going to have our custom form. So I'm going to have, this should be users.forms and custom sign up form, and paste it in. So we can start up the server and test it. Let me refresh it, cancel. And yeah, you can see that we have this. We have the email, first name, last name, the age, password, and password. But it won't work. There is one more thing that we need to do. Let's just first test it and see the error you're going to get. I'm going to provide the first name, last name, age 23 or age 23, password, testing321, testing321, and click on sign up. So we get the same error, not null, constant failed. That is the age field. It shouldn't be null. And the main cause of this error is how django-allauth processes our form and tries to save our user. Django-allauth that doesn't include the age field when it tries to save our user. And that's in our adapter file, and you can see it here in the adapter.py file, user.save. It doesn't include the age field. We're going to need to modify django-allauth adapter and add our custom functionality to save the users. And you can see from the documentation, we just need to override the save user function. And you can see the description is the function saves a new user instance using information provided in the sign up form. So all we need to do is to create our own adapter and extend the default account adapter. In our users application, we are going to create a new file and we are going to call it adapters. This should be adapters, not this, adapters.py. So first of all, we need to import the default adapter from allauth. So from allauth.account.adapter, import default account adapter. Then we're going to create our own adapter. So that's a class. So class my adapter. Adapter is going to extend default account adapter. And like I said, there's only one thing that we need to override, and that is the save user function. It takes in self request user, the form, which will contain our user data. So we don't want to run the parent's save user function. So I'm going to remove it. And I'm going to reprocess the form data. So I'm going to have data. This will be form.cleaned data. So we have our data, and in our data object, we can access the various attributes we pass in our form. That is the first name, last name, and the age. So we have data. Here we'll have first name, and we can assign this to our user object, which is user.firstname. So we have our user.firstname. You can also do the same for the age and last name. And let's also have the age. After the age, you can also have the email. Finally, we are also going to check for the password. So if password 1 is in data, we want to assign the user object password. So we can say user.set password, and here we can just pass data, and this is password 1. In the case that they don't have a password, we're just going to set an unusable password for the user. And this method ensures that the user has a password that cannot be used for login. So we do this if we don't want the created user to have a password that they can use for login. For example, if the user has created an account using their Google account, we still want them to log in, but we don't want them to log in using a password. They can still authenticate, but they can authenticate using OAuth, but not using the password. So finally, we need to save our user object and return it. So we can save our user using user.save and return our user. Finally, after this is done, we need to tell django-allauth to use this adapter. So in our settings.py file, we are going to have account, and this should be adapter. And here we are going to pass the paths to our custom adapter, which is users adapter. Then this should be my adapter. Sorry, this should be adapters. And this should be adapter. So we have our account forms and our account adapter. This should be account adapter. So after that is done, we can refresh our server and try registering the user once again. So we have this John Doe, age, password, testing 321, testing 321. Click on sign up. I'm getting this error. User object has no attribute set. Oh, I think I misspelled it. There should be a password. It happens to the best of us. the user has been created. We can check this by going to the admin page. So we can navigate to localhost admin, and you can see we get this. You are authenticated as john@gmail.com, but you're not authorized to access this page. So we can log in with our admin credentials, and that was johndoe@gmail.com. The password testing321 and login. I've entered the wrong password. Testing321. So you can see the user we just created, and that's john@gmail.com. You can see the last login, the email, last name, first name, age, and the password. So that is that. Let's try to navigate to, let's go back to the home page. So we still haven't logged out. We are still logged in as the admin. Before you progress to the next thing, I want to show you something very quick, and that is how to use URL names in Django. You might have noticed this when we created the Signup page, where we have this URL tag. This is a URL name registered in the Django-allauth accounts URL. And we can do the same thing for our custom views. For example, in our homepage, where we have our URLs, you can see we have the home view, the about, the team, and the services, and we've given them names. We have the home is given the name home, about, and so on. So we can see how we can use these names in our HTML. So in our base HTML, we can set the URLs for the about us, the services, and the team. So that's at the navigation, that's in the header. So first of all, I'm going to remove these classes. We want to delete that. And where we have the about us.html, we're going to replace this by our URL names, and that's URL. Then we pass in our URL, which is our URL name, which is about. We can do the same for the services. I'm just going to copy this. Services. Can also do the same for the team. We can copy the about us once again and replace it in the drop down. Do the same for the team. For our home page, this should be home. We can remove the contact. We want to delete that. So let's refresh it. So when you click on about us, you can see that it will redirect us to the about page. The same for services and the team. And on that note, we can also add login and logout URLs just along the navigation. So to do that, we are going to check if the user is authenticated. If the user is authenticated, we are going to provide a logout URL. If the user is not authenticated, we are going to provide them with a login URL. So we can have this in our navigation tag where we have the rest of the URLs. Right down here, we are going to have an if block or if else. I have a shortcut for this. It's still Ginger. So the condition is if user dot is authenticated. If user is authenticated, we want to return a logout URL. So I'm going to copy this just to get started. Let me create the space, and this should be logout. The URL is from accounts, Django-allauth account. So that's account, logout. Else, if they are not authenticated, let me just copy this, and this should direct them to the login page. Login. Again, these are from Django-allauth. Eventually, I'm going to add in here the profile URL, but for now, let's just leave it as this. So we can refresh, and you can see we get this logout since I'm already authenticated. If I were to open this in a separate browser, I can open it in a new private window, and you can see we get the login URL. It won't work at the moment because we still haven't customized the sign-in pages. We can try to log out, and you can see we get this django-allauth default page. We just need to customize it a bit, and we're going to do the same thing we did with the signup.html. So in our templates under accounts, we just need to create a new file, and we're going to call it logout.html. We can extend the base.html. Then we can have the block. We won't need the crispy forms, the crispy tags. Have the block because it's just a simple logout URL. And I'm going to have it as content. I've prepared this separately, so I'm just going to paste in. So it's basically a div with a header 2 asking the user if they want to log out. Then you have the form sending the action to our account.logout. We have a sref token. We have the logout button. We also have a link to cancel the whole process. So we can refresh it and see. I see we have, are you sure you want to log out? You can just log out. You can see that the URL changes to login. There's one more thing I want to show you, and that's the Django messages. And in simple terms, these are just flash messages that, for example, when a user logs out, we need some kind of visual feedback for the user to get above here. So the visual feedbacks will look like this. This is from Bootstrap 5. You can see the various classes. We have alert primary, alert secondary, success, danger, warning, info, light, and dark. And these attributes, primary, secondary, success, are shared by Django. You can see we have debug, info, success, warning, error. So these Bootstrap classes are the same with the messages tags. So in our base.html file, just above our block content, this is where we want to display our messages. So we can check if the messages are present using an if block. So we can say if we have the messages, I'm going to have them in a div with custom CSS. This will be the messages section. Then I'm going to loop over all the messages that are available using a for loop. For every message in messages, this is where we are going to print the messages. And this will be a div similar to one of these. And I want one that can be dismissed. And you can see how to do that over here. It has an X sign that can be dismissed. We'll have a class, the div will have a class of alert, and some messages tag. So let's have that. So that will be div.alert. I'm going to give it the Bootstrap classes. Let me just copy this, paste it in. And we don't want to fix this to warning. This is where the messages tags come in. So this should be a variable, and this should be message.tags. So within this div tag, this is where we want to print the messages. So here we'll have the message variable, and right below it we want to put the button, which is this, the close button. I'm also going to do some changes in our block content. I'm going to put it within a div and give it a margin top of 2, and just copy it and paste it within the div so that there will be some space between our main content and our messages. So you can see this in action by trying to log in, and you can see when we try to log in once again, we get the Django-allauth default sign-in page. By now you should be familiar with how we can override this. In our templates and account, we just need to create a new file, and that's under login.html. This is going to be very similar to our signup.html file, so we can just copy this. Let's copy it and paste it in. The legend should state login. The button should state sign in instead of sign up. And down here, we are going to ask them if they don't have an account. So this should be don't have an account. And if they don't have an account, we should provide a URL to the sign up page. So this should be account sign up. The text should state sign up. So we can refresh it and see the changes. So we have this, we have our login email and password. So I can try to log in with one of the created users at gmail.com. The password was testing321 and sign in. And here you can see we get the message, successfully signed in as john@gmail.com. And if we log out, you can see we get the same message, you have signed out. There's one more thing that we need to update, and that is the sign up flow. Let me just navigate to the login and click on sign up. You'll notice the last time that it was redirecting us to the profile pages, but we haven't set that up at the moment. So ideally, I'd like to redirect to the home page, and we can do that by providing a login redirect URL setting in our settings.py file. So in our settings file, we can have it as this. So we can test this by providing another email. Let's say elon@gmail.com. The first name Elon, the last name user, age 45, password testing321, testing321. As we are doing this, there's also one thing I can show you, that our form is functional. So if a user enters an invalid input, it shouldn't work. So if we enter password that don't match, and let's say that we don't also provide the last name, and we try to sign up, you can see we get that. And if we provide the last name as user and try to sign up, you can see that we get this message from Django. This is the crispy tags in action. You must type the same password each time. So I'll enter valid passwords, testing321, and click on sign up. And here you've successfully signed in as elon@gmail.com. We get those messages and you can close them as such. So I think that's it for this tutorial. We've seen how to implement user authentication using django-allauth. We've created a sign up page. We've created a login page. We've seen how to log out. And we've also seen how to use the URL tags. And we've also seen how to customize the django-allauth default templates. In the next tutorial, we're going to start working on our profile pages. You're going to learn how to work with media. Every user will have an image or avatar. So you're going to learn how to do that. You'll learn how to manage the profile. You'll learn how to manage the passwords. You'll learn how to update the profile's name, avatar, age, and so on. So if you found this video useful, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing. And if you have the means, you can buy me a coffee by scanning the QR code or clicking the link in the description. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.